Good morning to you all. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I very much welcome this important initiative of a dedicated conference to address issues and concerns regarding the payment of pensions for conflict-affected people. From the outset, I would like to point out that unlike the revised titles for this event, I believe we should focus on the entitlement to pensions for all people from the conflict area. All people who live on both sides of the contact line, and look at the difficulties that they have faced and continue to face in accessing their pension. For the UN and for Ukraine, UN General Assembly Resolution 68262 recalls the territorial integrity of Ukraine. This is not just about land, it is about people. All those who have been affected by the conflict in the East, whatever side of the contact line they may find themselves. They are all Ukrainian, and ultimately to whom the government of Ukraine has commitments and obligations in line with international standards. Let us also recall that a pension is both a right and an entitlement which governments are obliged to secure. On the 25th of October this year, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Madame Bachelet, and the International Labour Organization Director, Mr. Ryder, signed a joint call for action asking countries to support and expand social security and assistance, stressing that these are critical for achieving the UN Sustainable Development Agenda. In their call, they specifically urge countries to secure and responsibly manage resources for social protection with a view to increase the coverage of public pensions. In Ukraine, I would say one thing further with regard to the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda, and that remind us all of the pledge to leave no one behind. So, from the outset, let me be clear. Access to pensions should be guaranteed to all eligible persons, and they should not be linked to being an IDP. If you allow me, I'm going to give some chronology to the situation that is faced today. Since 2014, more than 1 million conflict-affected persons have had trouble in accessing their pension, subjected to various registration and verification procedures, often finding themselves in a situation of uncertainty or worse. There are particularly vulnerable categories of elderly persons. Their pension is their main source of income. For a person living in armed group controlled territory who is entitled to a pension, you needed to register as an internally displaced person and then undergo a cumbersome verification procedure. Over the past 4 years, this linkage between IDP registration and the eligibility for pension has disenfranchised different groups of people, all holding the legitimate right to receive a pension. Back in 2014, 160,000 pensioners who were unable to leave the areas controlled by armed groups and travel to government-controlled territory were the first to be affected by the IDP registration requirement. This group included people who had difficulties with mobility, obviously older persons who could not travel, had a disability, had a low income, and those people who simply did not understand the procedure and requirements. With the requirement to register as an IDP, some 75% of pensioners did actually follow this requirement in order to access their pensions. However, many maintained their actual place of residence on the other side of the contact line, travelling back and forth, thereby inflating IDP figures and the numbers making the crossing through the numerous checkpoints. In 2016, the authorities introduced measures to verify all pensioners with IDP registration. The that had indeed. In 2016, the authorities introduced measures to verify if all pensioners with IDP registration had indeed moved to government-controlled territory. Such measures included home visits by social workers, physical verification at the bank where the pension is being issued, and cross-checking of lists provided by the State Border Guard Service and the State Security Services. The result? The suspension of pensions for people believed to be living on the other side of the contact line. In 2017, pensioners who had moved across the contact line and had registered as an IDP, integrating into host communities, and who had acquired permanent residence registration in government-controlled territory, relinquishing their IDP registration, they then face a situation where, having lost their IDP registration, were unable to receive their pension payment due to the shortcomings of the regulatory framework. The Pension Fund continues to suspend pensions based on verification results, which compels pensioners to seek protection of their rights and the reinstatement of their pensions through courts. Each suspension means that an individual faces a gap in receiving the monthly income they depend on. In April of this year, the government did amend the regulations confirming the rights of persons whose pensions have been suspended, and later reinstated to have their accumulated pensions subsequently paid out. These amendments foresee a special administrative procedure for such retroactive payments. They are very welcome, yet the government has not developed the specific procedure to actually implement them. From the total number of pre-conflict 1,02,708 pensioners from the Donetsk and Lugansk regions, as of July this year, only over 400,000 have received their pension. That is 37%. We would encourage the Pension Fund to now provide data on the number of pensions suspended or reinstated since July 2018, the last time they provided any data. Recent court practice deserves recognition. We welcome the final judgment of the 4th of September 2018, issued in an exemplary case where the Grand Chamber of the Supreme Court upheld the earlier Supreme Court judgment of 3rd of May 2018, finding the termination of pension payments to an IDP based on verification results unlawful and constituting interference in the applicant's right to property. On the 20th of September, the Supreme Court ruled that persons residing in territory not controlled by the government cannot be deprived of the allocated social payments based on the absence of an IDP registration. Despite these positive judicial developments, the root of the problem remains in policy. The fact that access to a pension is linked with IDP registration. As we, many in this room, have worked on over the years, there is a need for this policy to be amended to de-link the payment of pensions from IDP registration, and through this to ensure equal access to pensions regardless of a place of residence or IDP registration. Certain steps in that direction have already been taken by the government, and I would like to now outline three that we believe deserve particular attention. There are legislative initiatives pending before Parliament that would enable people to receive pensions in government-controlled territory, although they continue to live on the other side of the contact line without having to register as an IDP. Second, the government, meanwhile adjusting the government regulations in line with the position of the highest national judicial body could alleviate the situation of pensioners who have IDP registration. And third, a different solution is needed to address the situation of those people who are not able to travel across the contact line. This, we all recognise, is a complex matter, and requires agreement from all parties. I would like to conclude by emphasizing that addressing the legitimate human rights of conflict-affected persons are an important test of an authority's ability to create a responsible governance and social justice system, which are important prerequisites for lasting peace. In this regard, access to pension should be guaranteed to all eligible pension persons, whether they are registered as an IDP or not. Thank you.